Hello again, and welcome to lesson 5. This one is going to be focusing on how you get the letters to communicate to each other, making a word. So we've only been working on single letters, so this would be a really good chance to start seeing how they communicate and how they sit together. Now, if you're really new to this, you might want to start with giving a rough space that you want to fill so you can get your proportions and balance right. So you might want to give yourself a bit of a gentle framework, like a rectangle, and you split that in half. If you know you've got 4 letters in the word, so say Enos, E-N-O-S, I know my E and N want to roughly fill this amount, and my OS want to roughly fill this amount. You could also think, oh, do I want it to have some sort of shape? You could have an arc to your top, so it kind of like pops in a nice sort of form like that. So you give yourself a sort of a unique canvas shape to aim for. So that's another thing you could start with. So once you have this basic space grid, the sort of center line, then you can feel free to just pencil out a real quick, just try some basic flows, just literally handwriting styles, and get used to that, filling that space. Now this is not your final letter, this is just you warming up to your what you're wanting to achieve really. Then you can start thinking about the spines. So way back to lesson 1 and 2, think about the spines. What do you want to be your major building blocks to your letters? There's no real rule. You don't have to start at the first letter. You can start center and work your way out and things. Generally what I do is I start at the first letter, sketch out that, find some sort of energy or theme that comes out through this sketch, and I try and replicate it in the N, O and S. I'm trying to feel the same story. But then what you find is this story will evolve by the time you get through the 4 letters. And so then I flip back to the beginning and I try and get the beginning to catch up with the last. It's an interesting kind of feeling really. It might be something you want to try eventually as well. But I think for this I'm just going to keep doing my normal, and I'm going to talk you through thoughts and feelings. I'm going to keep the letters very basic because we don't want to spend too much time just watching me draw. So as I said, I'm trying to throw in my first sort of spine, my pillar, foundation pillar. And I'm thinking, and I'm going to use a bit of concept of fractured flows here and there, and adding on flows on flows, some thick and thin. So all these things we've talked about in the past, I'm now going to be utilising. As you see, I'm just sketching in, deciding how thick I want them, how heavy I want the letters. As you see, these kind of flows start appearing. I could cut into there. And you start finding links. Where can they join? Where can they communicate to each other? And you're just roughing it out, getting that framework in. And with how they sit together, it's very like you want to fill the negative space again. So you don't want too much airtime between each letter. You want that strength, you want that density within your form. You can either, I tend to have slight overlaps. This is all preference, but I don't like big overlaps because it hides. I don't like one letter dominating another, and I think it's a good aspect to have. You don't want, say, like, so the bottom of my N here now would be completely obscured if I was to come out here. So I want to try and bend and make the letters dance around each other. So I don't want to obscure too much. There'll be a bit. So I might bring in the curve so you can still see an origin point of this. And also, when you start trying to fit your letters into this dance around each other, you start to get real nice, sort of more dynamic within the flow. You know, it's a nice challenge to throw to yourself. It pushes your style. See how that can communicate with there as well. Come into here. Again, it's always nice to see angles almost mirror each other. So see how this energy line, this flow down here, I can then use that to inspire this shape here. And so you start to get this harmony forming as they communicate with each other. And then my next one is an O, so perhaps I could come in from here. So, and then I'm thinking of weight as well. So this is quite a nice dense part, strong part, foundation. So I want to try and throw this chunkiness around another area. So I'm going to try and put something up here which has a bit more oomph to it. As you can see, I haven't really worried too much about finalising this E yet. I felt a flow, I felt a vibe, and I'm quickly transferring it to the next letter, then the next. And then once I get a general story, I'll kind of go back and tweak it. And again, it's all about hugging in tight to each letter. And always remember the flows of your forms. You know where they begin. The origin point, how it twists and bit flips and bounces. You want to make sure that the physics of the flow is complete. When I say the physics, it's almost like there's a gravity to it and a stretch to it. All these sort of things. And as you see, I've now brought in another tech to it, like a little splitting, like a feathering of the flow. So you can almost see a flow here, and then there's another flow here. They merge into one. And so this is something now I want to bring in to elsewhere eventually. So maybe here. So you start bringing elements, and it really starts to balance out the piece. It makes it look as one. Yes, this is kind of, now I'm thinking, okay, so this is leaning out a lot, so can I make an S, have that lean? Again, trying to find some sort of story that they share. again I use, say, a flow from another letter next to it to tease the form of it. And so this flow kind of pulling and moving, so it's almost like sucking a bit of this into it. Maybe some sort of kick off here. Perhaps trying to think of this kind of thing. We'll come back to that. So I haven't really talked much about the spines since, but this is kind of, it's automatic for me now. So like here's one, there's one, there's one, which then kind of blend into a curve. Spine here. So they're dotted around. They're sort of my key building blocks. I feel like breaking this up a bit. It's such a big old flow there. Bit of that splitting apart there again, just like earlier. Nicely, look, there's this kind of almost has an echo of each other very conveniently. Maybe enhance that. What's that? Some kind of line cutting through, and this is where you start to discover some kind of something unique about the composition. I guess if I wanted to, I could really tease that and have it kind of jutting through my piece. There's like this energy just blasting through. Now you see the general story coming together. I could link to here. I could at least touch maybe. This is where the magic starts now. You just look around and see what can join up. And fuse. I really love this whole kind of feeling of when a flow reunites and merges with another flow. I think it looks beautiful when they just sort of kiss and then the line disappears and they just become one. It's kind of like this really organic kind of thing, almost like in trees when you see them, the branches grow apart and then some like twist back and then they merge into another. It's really nice. It's one of my favourite kind of little details. So now I'm just going to start finalising my lines and strengthening them up and seeing if I'm happy with them. And as you do this, I'm just as I do this, I'm always thinking: is that flow right? Does that look good? Is that balanced? Is that curve full? You know, like, and don't want to be cutting short a curve or anything, or making it look unnatural. I love these things as well, where flows zig out and cut back across. I think it's one of the reasons why I love graph so much. Just the energy, the lines, the strength of movement. It's like the conviction between your mark, like in your mark making. So I'm a dancer as well, you know. So as a b-boy, these things really resonate with me. How you can really cut through a movement, bring a lot of. That's too much. That's just bring it in a little. I mean, maybe that's partly why my style is like this. Coming from a dancer's perspective. But I mean, a lot of graph was about that, you know, making your letters dance, making your letters move, animate them. What they expressing. What's your flavour? And are you a neat person? Are you someone who likes order and structure? Your letters are all going to be very well, you know, ordered, same thicknesses. I really like the movement, the flow, so my letters are very flow orientated. It's like I'm trying to harness movement, even though it's a still image. I want to make it look like it's alive and breathing. These are things you probably want to start asking yourself, you know. Are you a mathematical person? Do you want yours to like puzzles or such? Or are you more of a comic book person? You want it to bring a character into your letters. You know, you put faces within them, or all sorts of potentials there. Let's give them a join here. You know, I used to love, when I was developing my style, I used to love doing themes. Like, I'm going to make this word like a robot, you know, and you start putting in circuitry and wirings and vents and things, or like armor them up like you're some sort of tank, you know, you're arming your troops. You put armor and shields and plating upon them, and all these little games you give yourself are just another way of learning new texts, new ways of forming. See that little flick flow, little cuts. And these things as well, I love enhancing my sketch lines. Just teasing out my natural tendencies to put a flick in here. So hope I'm giving you food for thought. So yeah, I mean that's pretty nice. What I would probably think about doing is seeing if I can find some sort of, as you see this flow kind of. Is there something I can maybe pull from the O or the S, just to enhance that look? But right now I can't see it. It might take a bit of play. Who knows? You might. I don't just like sticking in stuff for no reason. I feel like it has to be born from part of the letter. Otherwise, you're just doing something for, I don't know. Things have to have a reason, you know. And right now, I'm not finding that reason. So maybe instead of a flow, could I do a fill spot? some sort of almost where the letter fracturing there. Just a potential for. Another thing as well, like my negative space is quite nicely. There's things jumping into it, whereas this there isn't. So I'd be thinking that's almost too much space compared to everything else. So I'm thinking, how can I fix that? Maybe you could put an eye in there, or it looks like a face at the moment. But because there's an eye is a bit too much for this piece. It will take away all the attention from everywhere else. I need it more subtle. Could there be some sort of flow that can come into here as well? Put the flow in a flow. Like so. Look at that. That's pretty nice. I can tease that out there. Let's go with that. But now I've got this technique. It's almost like a flow bang on top of a flow, so I kind of want to put that elsewhere now. Can that be used over here? That's just too much. It's ruining the actual look of an S. Yeah, that's what I'm looking for. Something like that. Let's see if I can put any more of these things in. That might be nice. So I really like this part where you start playing, you start tweaking and layering up your composition, finding cool things like this, some sort of zigzag. Finding out what works for you. Something funky. Bring that in. Something about that is not quite working with me. That's better. Go with that flow. Don't fight it. still something about this bottom corner. I just don't know. It's just think differently. It's just. It needs to be filled with something. Let's put some sort of alchemical symbol in here. See if that fills the space, satisfies me. That's pretty nice. There we have one. There's a piece, you know. I'd be happy putting this up on a wall. I really would. Now the question is, once you get to this stage, it's like, oh, okay, what kind of 3D would you do? You know? Do you want a 3D? I find my style is very, it's a challenge when it comes to 3D because there's so much variety in its feeling. There's movement, and movement is quite hard to get a balanced 3D on. You know, like how I've got thin bits and there's thick bits, and there's like, do they all deserve a 3D construction, you know? Drop shadow is always an option. Have like a nice thick outline which kind of gives a sense of just a slight 3D, and then drop shadow it, and that will really pop it off the wall. But what I've been doing recently is I've been using the 3D as a nice chance to put in different colours, so a bit of thickness might be nice. What I've just started to think about is an organic 3D, so a 3D that isn't got. So from the video 4, talked about these certain rules. It's like a vanishing point, and you will go to a vanishing point. So that you can have a vanishing point in the centre, and everything goes to that centre. So you get this sort of popping towards you sensation, which is generally what I would go for on this. So it seems to want to be coming straight at you. And when I say an organic, like there's certain curves and bends in your letter would denote, okay, maybe that would be a sharp turn in your 3D. Yeah. So I'm imagining the vanishing point is way back there somewhere. This is where it gets a bit messy because this is obviously dead centre. So it'd be all meeting, joining to each other. So yeah, that works. Just quickly about this. So these are the bits I probably think about. Do they need 3D? These sort of bits that are shooting through, tiny. There's a hint of it, almost as if the top layer is being splattered out. So it doesn't quite need the same level of 3D detail as the others. I love a good E. So much to go with going on in an E. It's amazing. And this is partly why I chose this name, Enos, because the letters, I really like the letters. It also means it encapsulated a certain point in my life where I really started to experience reality or understand myself a lot deeper than it used to be, and also became evolved notion of self. So I've had a lot of names in the past. It's just my friends happily remind me of and use. But yeah, this name kind of resonates with my, I guess, inner ideal, inner vision. Yeah, so it's always nice to find something that has a meaning for you. It's almost like a meditation. It's almost like that's the beauty of hip hop. It's and I'm going to directly relate graph to hip hop because that's how I see it. Even though it's become such a world of its own, but I see it as definitely a part of hip hop culture. I mean, it was, to begin with. I see hip hop as a culture which is so powerful. It's like constantly asking you, like, who are you? It's like, who are you? How do you want to resonate? How do you want to become? How do you want to express? You're becoming. Your mind is becoming a co-creator. You're thinking about creation and what this means for you, what it means to the community. How do you want to utilize this? It empowers you. It puts like, it gives you the tools. It gives you the confidence. It gives you the vision to perhaps evolve and grow and improve. And it's like hip hop is like a teacher, a parent, all wrapped up into one. It's a friend. It's a companion. It gives you a belonging. It makes you see the world beyond yourself. Teaches you so much. Teaches you as much as you allow it to teach. And the lessons happen as fast as you want them to. As you can see, it's quite a deep thing for me. I'm sure there's plenty of people out there with similar mindset about it. I'm just working systematically now, going through all my points. Hopefully you can see the process is what I taught the other day being used. And hopefully you can see that and make connections. Go, oh yeah, I see now. That makes sense. I mean, right now, I don't know how clear this is to people because it's all grey tone. It's going to be harder to distinguish letter from background and background from 3D. But in my head, it's perfectly clear. So it's just a shame really, like, I won't have time to colour this in for you and really show you where my mind's eye is at. But I think it's nice just to see someone go through this process. And this is interesting because how much do I want that to have a 3D? It's just a subtle. Cast a shadow onto that. I feel like this is its own complete thing. could maybe just do a little bit of an outline just to show you. Bring that into center. Yeah, I never really plan the colours at this stage. When I go to paint it on a wall, just that day I'd sort of grab cans that really I feel like I want to use, and once I'm at the wall I then decide like, oh, I might, want this colour to be there and stuff like that. I like to let it breathe. I like it to have some flexibility. I find having flexibility allows the artwork to actually become more than you originally ever gave credit to. Sometimes it evolves right there on the day, and you learn. Again, it's hip hop teaching you. It's like if you surrender, if you open up and just let loose and loosen up a bit from your original plan, sometimes you can discover some great things. And even if you have a mistake, it's the process of fixing that mistake is sometimes very profound. Like you develop new techniques. I think it was the ancient Mayan culture that actually honoured mistakes. That was inbuilt in their culture. They saw a mistake almost like a lesson from the divine, because trying to solve that problem, you actually became more than what you began as. So it's quite an interesting thought to think about. Wall here, trying to up our game, improve our situation in some way, improve others' situations. I think as well, as an artist, as you develop as an artist, you sort of open up to certain things, become more sensitive to certain other aspects of life, and that starts to resonate in your actions and your creations. Like, I'm really into the Fibonacci sequence, the golden ratio, things like that. I feel like the balances of my artwork embody that, and the curves. I'm very fussy about how I draw the flows and the lines, and if I do it wrong, I can see it's almost missing a part of the maths, the maths of the universe, the maths of creation. It's like if I don't capture that mathematics, that balance of form and flow, it's like I've not done it justice. It's like I'm trying to learn about it. It's like I'm trying to uphold it. This is something I've always felt, always tried to attain. Again, that probably has led to why my style has become this. It's kind of very organic, kind of plant-like, but then with some conscious drive behind it, hence the movement and such. spent many hours, trying to perfect that. I find it a very peaceful time, like settling down and solving a puzzle, making yourself a game. Like, how can I do this? How can I fix that? And I really enjoyed sharing this with you guys. I hope you've learned something. I love these little symbols. An upside down triangle is a symbol for the feminine. That's what I say. And the triangle with the point up is a symbol of the masculine. I think in our current society where it's very patriarchal, I try and remind the subconscious of women people, that there's a whole feminine aspect of existence that kind of forgotten way back when, I don't know, certain things used to be a bit different. There's a bit more presence of the feminine in our faiths, in our society, in our cultures. It seems to have been buried for some reason. And of course, creativity is a feminine aspect of yourself. I'm talking masculine and feminine as an emotional state, as a quality within the person. Everyone has a masculine and feminine aspect. I'm not talking about a biological thing here. So creativity is technically a feminine aspect, and I think hip hop is again, come back to hip hop here. It's a culture that really balances this, because of the competitive, fiery nature of hip hop as well. Like the one-upmanship and proving your skills, proving your worth. It's a very fiery state, and that's very masculine. But then the art of creation, the art of giving birth, the art of nurturing is a feminine aspect. And that's another thing I find so profound about hip hop, is it brings these two aspects so close together. I really think it's a healer. I really think it has that, because of that, it's a really powerful ability to change so much and help so much. And it helps sort of establish a better balance in people too. It's like it gets you by surprise, like, oh, before you know it, you're becoming a more well-rounded human being. It's amazing. It might have all begun from more of an ego perspective, but then it just completely shifts. It's it's very cool, very cool, very poetic. Put a bit more shadow on the edge of that. Yeah, so hopefully you can actually see that a bit better now. Yeah, bit of 3D here. Again, using that vanishing point method, bringing that in there. A bit more dark. I'm already feeling the urge to colour this in now, but I don't want to take up all your time. Well, this has been, I really enjoyed this. Again, thank you for tuning in, and thank you for listening to my hip hop philosophies. Yeah, and that is the journey of lettering together. You know, it's like, so let's just quickly recap before say goodbye. So, first, for the beginners, you want to set yourself the space you want to fill. Maybe give yourself a center line so you get a nice balance. You know, depending on letters, if you have 3 letters, obviously you have the 1 letter in the middle and work out from there. But yeah, you sort of start, find some sort of flow. Remember, use the pillar theory, the spine theory. Think about where the flow is going to grow from. You have a foundation piece. Lay that down. And flow from there. Think of the thick and thin. Like obviously the fin generates that illusion of movement, almost like this fast movement where the flow's picked up pace and hasn't had quite time to densify and thicken. So it's like the fin is almost like the stretch, and then the thicker is where it's more solid and based. So it's sort of like, whoa. So think about the drama in your letter. Where do you want the tension to be? Where do you want the weight to sit? And think about the architectural qualities of your letter. Is it well balanced? Is it well centered? And then think about how they communicate. So you bring it tight, bring them close together, make them look as one. You know, and try not to overlap too much. You don't want one letter completely ruling some. You know, like missing chunks of another letter because it's hidden behind. You want it to be sort of holding firm in a balanced way. So like use that negative, fill that negative space, and then if you find techniques that you really like, try and put them around other places within that form, really balancing out the piece. And yeah, have fun. Like that's the thing, man. Have fun. Like develop your style. Don't be afraid to take risks and chances. You know, you have the rubber. Just rub it out. Just you can try as many times as you want to find that perfect S or that F. You know, just keep persevering, and then your brain will store up all these ideas, and you'll learn tactics and methods to do this and do that, and before you know it, you can put together a piece that is beautiful, and it's just doesn't take that long. Just practice. Wish you all well. Thank you very much. Peace.